you're 18, now you can be a fool legally.
And as you know, great artists don't become famous till after they're dead.
I will honestly say, I don't remember ever speaking a word to Esther the whole time she was there. I think the same basically goes for Jimmie.
Jimmie Walker, famous for his role on Good Times, had a reputation for being funny and full of energy. But behind the scenes, there was real tension. Did he have a problem with one specific person on the show?
Was that I felt too much emphasis was being put on JJ and his chicken hat and saying dynamite every third page.
And what made him dislike her more than anyone else? Let's explore the truth behind this feud.
Here I am!
Jimmie Walker's journey to fame is a true rags-to-riches story. Born James Carter Walker Jr. on June 25, 1947, he grew up in the tough streets of South Brooklyn, New York. Later, he moved to the Bronx, living in the projects and dreaming of a better life. As a teenager, Jimmie stood over 6 feet tall and loved basketball, but his skinny frame didn't help him make it to the NBA. Life in the ghetto was hard, and Jimmie didn't see himself as an entertainer.
What are the cultural advantages of being brought up in the ghetto?
You learn how to use a lot of culinary equipment such as knives.
Jimmie worked small jobs to get by, including selling food at Yankee Stadium and running errands for a grocery store. At one point, he earned just $47 a week, but everything changed when he discovered comedy. In 1967, Jimmie joined a group called The Last Poets. They needed someone to warm up the crowd during a New Year's Eve show, so Jimmie gave it a shot. He was a hit. The audience of 350 loved him, and he stayed with the group for over a year. That's when Jimmie realized he had a gift for making people laugh. By 1972, Jimmie was performing on TV, appearing on The Jack Paar Show. Encouraged by friends, he quit his day job and focused on comedy full-time. Jimmie didn't see himself as an actor, but got lucky when a casting director noticed him during a comedy gig. That led to his big break in Norman Lear's TV series, Good Times. Jimmie played J.J. Evans, a wisecracking teenager, even though he was already 26 years old. His catchphrase, "Dynamite," became famous, but behind the scenes, things weren't always so funny. The cast of Good Times didn't get along as well as they seemed on screen. Esther Rolle, who played JJ's mom, and John Amos, who played his dad, reportedly had issues with Jimmie. John, only 8 years older than Jimmie, often clashed with him. Esther wasn't a fan of JJ's character, feeling he made the show too silly and took away from its serious messages about family and poverty. Jimmie admitted he didn't have much of a relationship with his co-stars. "I don't remember ever speaking a word to Esther," he once said. "The same goes for John. We were never friends. We only spoke on set."
I will honestly say, I don't remember ever speaking a word to Esther the whole time she was there. I think the same basically goes for John.
John Amos and Esther Rolle felt the show was supposed to tell stories about a strong black family. Instead, they thought JJ's comedy took away from serious topics the show could have covered. Amos, who played the father, said he wanted to show a responsible black man raising his family. He didn't want the show to send the wrong message about black families. Amos also believed the writers were ignoring the other kids in the family, Thelma and Michael. On the show, Michael wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, and Thelma dreamed of becoming a doctor. Amos thought focusing on their goals would inspire viewers, but instead, JJ got most of the attention for being funny.
I felt too much emphasis was being put on JJ and his chicken hat and saying dynamite every third page, when just as much emphasis and mileage could have been gotten out of my other two children and the concomitant jokes and humor that could have come out of that.
Esther Rolle, who played the mom, was just as upset. She told Ebony magazine that JJ's character had become a stereotype. "He's 18, doesn't work, can't read or write, and doesn't think," she said. The show didn't start out that way. Rolle felt this was a bad example for young black viewers. She didn't want them thinking they could succeed just by being silly and shouting "Dynamite!" The disagreements eventually caused problems. John Amos clashed with the producers over the direction of the show and was written out of the series. Esther Rolle stayed but continued to fight for changes.
You look great.
Thank you, Daddy.
Have a nice time, baby.
Some cast members saw it differently. While I am talking about Bernadette Stannis, who played Thelma, recently opened up in an interview to address the long-standing rumors. But according to Bernadette, things weren't exactly how people thought. Bernadette explained that Jimmie was a comedian who kept late hours and wasn't a morning person. He'd come in groggy and not speak to anyone, she said, laughing. She even joked about having to wake him up herself. Despite this, she had a good understanding of him and didn't take his behavior personally. She also shared a funny story about convincing Jimmie to take her out one night. He finally agreed and took her to a comedy club with his friends, including big names like Jay Leno. However, the night didn't go as she hoped. The guys spent the whole time cracking jokes, and no one really talked to her. She felt so out of place that she told Jimmie he never had to take her anywhere again. As for the supposed tension between Jimmie and Esther, Bernadette cleared up the rumors. She said it wasn't about personal issues, but more about how the show was written. Esther and John Amos, James, wanted the show to focus on family values. For example, in the first season, JJ was shown finding things, which Esther and John felt looked like stealing. They fought to remove those storylines because they wanted the characters to be positive role models. Jimmie, however, had his own way of doing things. He admitted to Bernadette that on tape nights, he would take the flowers sent to her by admirers and give them to his own girlfriend. Bernadette laughed it off, calling it clever. She said she often received flowers, especially from NBA players, and didn't mind Jimmie's antics. Bernadette emphasized that everyone on the set had their own personalities and priorities. While there were disagreements about the show's direction, it was all about making Good Times the best it could be. It's always refreshing to hear the real story from someone who was there, don't you think?
The character of JJ in Good Times, played by Jimmie Walker, is now looked at as a caricature. Well, he was anything but a caricature at the beginning. He was a gifted artist.
It turns out Jimmie Walker also had some strong feelings about how the show was run. His relationship with Norman Lear, the creator of Good Times, was not always smooth. Let's talk about why. Walker also felt that his character turned into a joke instead of being a real person. At first, Good Times was a show about a black family dealing with life's struggles. It had serious moments about poverty, racism, and family. But as the show went on, Walker thought it became all about JJ's comedy, as earlier mentioned. Walker didn't like that shift. He believed the show lost its balance. Instead of mixing humor with social issues, it focused too much on making Jay the funny guy. Walker said his character started to feel like a caricature, a silly version of a real person. He didn't feel the show was as meaningful as it could have been.
But too much dynamite, 2 years later is viewed as cliche, not cliche, as a caricature.
Norman Lear, on the other hand, had a different view. He was known for creating shows that blended humor with important topics, like All in the Family and The Jeffersons. But Walker wasn't shy about criticizing Lear's decisions. Over the years, Walker has mentioned his frustrations in interviews. He didn't leave the show, but he made it clear he wasn't happy with the direction it took. What do you think? Should Good Times have stayed more serious, or was JJ's humor part of its magic? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section.
He mattered in stories that were very serious stories, drugs and alcohol. He was wonderful, but we allowed him, for the sake of getting those laughs, those easy laughs, to repeat himself too much.
In his memoir and interviews, Walker also shared dismissive comments about Janet Jackson. His comments surprised a lot of people, especially fans of Janet. Let's break it down. Janet Jackson joined Good Times later in the show as Penny, a young girl dealing with a tough life. She became an important part of the show for many viewers. Her storyline was emotional, and fans loved seeing her bond with the other characters. But Jimmie Walker had a different opinion. In his book, Walker said Janet's role didn't really add much to the show. He thought bringing her in wasn't necessary and felt the show was already strong without her. He didn't seem to think her character made much of a difference to the overall story. Now here's the thing. Janet Jackson hasn't responded to Walker's comments. She hasn't made any public statements about it, but her fans weren't quiet. They were upset and defended Janet, saying she did an amazing job on Good Times. Many fans believe her role made the show even better and gave it more depth. This isn't the first time people from a TV show have disagreed about what worked and what didn't. Sometimes actors have different views about the show they were on, but fans will always have their favorites, and Janet Jackson has a lot of loyal supporters. At the end of the day, everyone is entitled to their opinion. Jimmie Walker shared his thoughts, and Janet Jackson stayed silent. What do you think? Did Janet's role as Penny make Good Times better, or do you think Walker had a point?
Was that I felt too much emphasis was being put on JJ and his chicken hat and saying dynamite every third page.
Jimmie, over the years, he has faced criticism from some in the Black community. Why? Mostly because of his political views and how he talks about social issues. Walker doesn't shy away from sharing his opinions, even if they upset people. He describes himself as a member of the Realist Party, but many see his views as very conservative. For example, he's been a vocal supporter of Donald Trump, a figure who has caused strong feelings in both directions. Walker has also been critical of former President Barack Obama, saying Obama made people feel good, but didn't fix problems. He once compared Obama to eating Chinese food. You feel satisfied at first, but then it's gone, leaving nothing lasting. These comments have sparked backlash. Some people feel disappointed, saying that Walker doesn't stand with the struggles or progress of the Black community. But Jimmie Walker doesn't apologize for his views. He says he's just being honest about what he believes. In his mind, America is like a business, and he thinks someone like Trump understands that better than other leaders. He feels people should focus on realism, not just speeches or feelings. The divide between Walker's political beliefs and the expectations of some of his fans has overshadowed his comedy for some. Instead of being remembered only for his catchphrase, "Dynamite," and his groundbreaking role, his political opinions have made headlines.
Because Leno, here's the real story, and all these other
This
people.
is what I want, the real story.
Here's what really happened.
Now let's talk about something interesting. This time is between Jimmie and Jay Leno. You probably know Jay Leno. He's the longtime host of The Tonight Show and one of the most famous comedians out there.
Jay could not do The Tonight Show, okay? Not to say he wasn't funny, Johnny just didn't like him, whatever the story was.
But did you know there might be a little tension between them? Walker once hinted in an interview that things weren't always smooth between him and Jay back in the day. He didn't go into all the details, but he seemed to suggest that Jay wasn't always respectful toward him. Maybe it was because they were both trying to make it big in comedy, and competition can make things awkward.
He was pissed. He'll lie now and say, yeah, I wasn't ready. He's full of shit. He would bitch about it every day. Every day I heard about this.
Now don't get it twisted. Jimmie doesn't hate Jay Leno. In fact, he said he's a fan of Jay. But Jimmie does have a bone to pick with him about something else. He thinks Jay hasn't done enough to help new comedians. Here's what Jimmie said. Johnny Carson, who hosted The Tonight Show before Jay, helped launch the careers of many comedians. Big names like Tim Allen, Steve Martin, and David Letterman got their big breaks because Johnny gave them a shot. But according to Jimmie, Jay didn't do the same. He's been on TV for decades, but Jimmie feels he didn't open the door for the next generation of comedians. To be fair, Jay Leno hasn't really responded to this. It's not like there's a full-blown feud going on. But it does make you think. In comedy, helping others get their big break can mean a lot. Maybe Jimmie just wishes Jay had done more of that. Is Jimmie right to feel that way, or is he being too hard on Jay? Either way, it's an interesting look at the comedy world and how even the biggest stars can have their differences. Jimmie became popular, even earning Walker recognition as the Comedian of the Decade by Time magazine. Good Times ran for 5 seasons, and Walker's fame grew as a result. He was the first to win the NAACP Image Award and even received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Despite his fame, Walker never married or had children. In a 2012 interview on The Wendy Williams Show, he shared that he had many girlfriends over the years. However, rumors about his personal life often stirred up interest. One of the biggest rumors was that he had been married to Friday the 13th actress Jerry Feuds since the 1980s. This rumor started because they appeared together on a game show called Tattletales in 1974, but in reality, they were never a couple. In 2017, new rumors emerged that Walker was in a long-term relationship with conservative speaker Ann Coulter. Coulter, who is 14 years younger than Walker, denied these rumors by tweeting, "Best of friends, love him, no romance." Although they were not a couple, the rumors started after Norman Lear, the producer of Good Times, mentioned the relationship in an interview. Lear called Walker a wonderful guy and added that Walker dated in secret. This statement shocked many people, but it was never confirmed if the two were really together.
Here I am!
Jimmie Walker's career stayed busy and exciting. In 1975, he was a weekend radio host on KAGB 103.9 FM, a station that played R&B music in Los Angeles. During the 1970s and 1980s, Jimmie made appearances on popular TV shows like The Tonight Show and the game show Match Game. From 1983 to 1984, he was a panelist on Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. He even joined the 1990 revival of Match Game and appeared on other game shows during that time. Jimmie also guest starred on many TV shows, including The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, The Drew Carey Show, Everybody Hates Chris, and George Lopez. He showed up in movies too, like Airplane, in 80 and Monster Mash. He even had starring roles in two short-lived TV series, At Ease and Bustin' Loose. In the 90s, Jimmie returned to his radio roots, hosting shows on several stations like WHIO and WOAI. He also ventured into music, appearing on a split release with the punk band Spaz. Even in the 2000s and 2010s, Jimmie kept acting. He appeared in the movies Big Money Rustlers and Super Shark. In 2012, he wrote his autobiography called Dynamite, Good Times, Bad Times, Our Times, a memoir where he shared stories about his life. That same year, he launched his own app for iOS. Most recently, in May 2023, Jimmie made a guest appearance on the soap opera The Bold and the Beautiful. He has stayed active and connected with fans throughout his long and colorful career. Jimmie Walker also published an autobiography in 2012 called Dynamite, Good Times, Bad Times. My Time's a memoir where he shared his journey and experiences. Now, at 76 years old, Walker continues to enjoy his life and career. His estimated net worth is around $800,000, and he remains a beloved figure in the world of comedy. Now let's change gears and look at the life of a few cast members of Good Times, where they are now, starting with John Amos. James Evans Sr. was the hard-working father on Good Times. He was strict but loving, and many people admired his dedication to his family. The character grew up poor, left school early, and worked hard all his life to take care of his wife and kids. John Amos, the actor who brought James to life, was born on December 27, 1939. He was younger than the character he played, but his performance was so strong that fans believed in him completely.
Yeah, well, I just undecided for you. So you got a full-time job right here in this house. You ain't putting in time in nobody's kitchen.
John Amos wasn't supposed to be in the show at first. The creators didn't plan for Florida Evans, played by Esther Rolle, to have a husband. But Esther insisted her character needed one, and that's how James Evans became part of the family. After Good Times, John Amos stayed busy in Hollywood. He acted in big hits like Coming to America, The West Wing, and Die Hard 2. He also served in the New Jersey National Guard and earned the honorary title of Master Chief in the Coast Guard. Amos faced some family drama in 2023 when his daughter Shannon accused her brother of mistreating him. John denied the claims and no proof was found during an investigation. Sadly, John Amos passed away on August 21, 2024, at 84 years old from heart problems. His death wasn't announced until October 1st, leaving his daughter shocked when she heard it from the news.
James, there is dignity in all work. It's not the kind of work you do that gives you dignity.
Then we have Esther Rolle, who played Florida Evans, the loving and strong mother who held the family together. Born on November 8, 1920, Esther came from a big family in Florida. She was one of 18 kids, and her parents, who were from the Bahamas, raised her to be proud and hardworking. Esther made sure her role on Good Times showed the real struggles of a black family. She brought warmth and honesty to Florida, making her a character people could relate to. Esther passed away on November 17, 1998, but her legacy lives on. People still admire her work and the powerful example she set.
Hey, Thelma, how you like this? What is it? Don't show your ignorance. This is Black Jesus.
Moving on to Michael Evans, played by Ralph Carter. Real Sound Clip Michael was the youngest of Florida and James's 3 children, played by Ralph Carter. Even though he was just a kid, he was very smart and had strong opinions about important issues like civil rights and social justice. Carter was born in 1961, just 2 years older than Michael was in the show. Good Times first aired when Carter was 11 years old. The character of Michael was based on Mike Evans, one of the show's creators. Before Ralph Carter got the role of Michael, the producers considered casting Lawrence Fishburne or another young Broadway actor, Haywood Nelson. Interestingly, Haywood would later star in another show created by Mike Evans called What's Happening. Today, all 3 men, Ralph Carter, Lawrence Fishburne, and Haywood Nelson, are still good friends. Unfortunately, when Good Times ended, Ralph Carter's acting career took a turn. He found it hard to get acting jobs and mostly earned money by singing in nightclubs. Over the years, he became less visible in the entertainment world. There were many false rumors about him during this time. Some said he was gay, had AIDS, or had even died. However, these stories were not true. Ralph Carter is very much alive and well at the age of 63.
You look great.
Thank you, Daddy.
Have a nice time, baby.
Finally, Thelma Evans, played by Bernadette Stannis, is a beloved character from the classic TV show Good Times. Born on December 22, 1953, Bernadette took on the role of Thelma when she was 20 years old. This was 4 years older than Thelma's character, who was only 16 when the show began. After Good Times, Bernadette Stannis kept working in the acting world. She made guest appearances on popular shows like The Love Boat, The Cosby Show, and The Wayans Brothers. More recently, she starred in 10 episodes of The Family Business as a character named Duncan. In addition to her TV roles, Bernadette has several movie credits, proving her versatility as an actress. One of Bernadette's proudest achievements is that she is a published author. She has shared her stories and experiences through her writing, showing her creative side beyond acting. In her personal life, Bernadette has been married 4 times. She has 1 child from her 3rd marriage and another child with her current husband, Kevin Fontana. As of now, Bernadette Stannis is 70 years old. She has had a rich life filled with love, ambition, and talent.